Hi.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy
What's
Friday.
up, everybody? Welcome to Office
Ah,
Hours. Man, we're back. It feels weird because we didn't have last week off, but it feels like we had last week off.
yeah, because it was like a free-for-all fun holiday extravaganza,
It
right?
was, yes. And
Yeah.
chat, nice to see you all. We have Frank's here, Steven's here, Wade is here. Of course, Wade is here. And if you all watched the holiday special last week, let us know what you thought of the whole week. What was your favorite segment? My favorite was, of course, the one with our friend Nick, where we made some gnocchi. Some
Gnocchi.
gnocchi. Uh,
Oh.
and Ashram, hi, nice to see you just on time. Yes, you just made it. Nick, for those that are just joining us, what are they watching? Where are they? What's happening here on this show?
Well, they're here at office hours, and we're here every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're talking everything creative, graphic, you name it, job stuff, portfolio stuff. We're like the Tony Robbins of Adobe, I would say.
Yeah, yes, no, that feels right. That I like.
hmm
Yeah, we could be.
Encouraging,
Yep.
right? All that
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we could
Yeah.
be that. I want to be the Kelly
Yeah.
Clarkson, like the daytime talk show, but we can be Tony Robbins too. Yeah, that's fine. Um, and
Well, you just want an area to sing, don't you?
I just want an area to sing. Yeah, I just like. Ooh, it's the middle of the show that time where I
Yep.
sing. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Andrew's got a microphone in his hand. Look
That's it.
out.
Oopsies. I do have my little Britney mic that I should have on. Some more friends are here. Ashram is here. Christelle just showed up as well. And yes, Wade, you have a great point there. There is a link that's on the screen right down here. Nick, where does that link go?
Takes you right to our Discord station
Yes.
channel hub.
Discord. Discord. What are they called? Is it a
Discord
server? I think they're
station.
called servers.
Yeah.
That takes you over to our Discord server, which is right here. Look at that. And look at that. Started streaming 108 seconds ago. Yeah, that's right. We are
Wow.
specific. We are on time here on Office Hours. If you've ever watched,
Yes.
Precision is the name of the game here on Office Hours. And yes, it
Yes.
is our Discord station channel. You can join over here by scrolling down to Office Hours right on the bottom. There is a ton of other content up at the top, but we want you to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Go to Off the Record. That's where we are right now. And then in
Yeah.
homework, we will have some homework for you this week. But Nick, look at what people made last week.
Hey, that's fantastic. Some
So
really cool holiday
yes,
stuff.
want to highlight a couple of people. Nick says this looks really simple, but it took me all day because I did the guy's face by hand with 3 of Kyle Webster's art markers. Look at that.
Very. What? Oh man, that is fantastic. I am so envious of people that could do that, like almost like very little detail, but it looks exactly like the person.
Yes,
Like, oh, look at that. That is
that's awesome.
wonderful.
Great
Great
job,
stuff,
Christelle.
guys.
And if you
Yeah.
didn't see it last week, oh, I punched my mic. I'm so sorry, everyone, if that was loud. Last week, we took all of the assets that we had created from the holiday special, and we made some coloring pages right there. And it looks like somebody's telling me to read my notifications. What notifications do I have? Oh, these over here? No, no.
No.
I thrive
Yeah.
in chaos.
Yes.
Hugh, great job here adding these in. Look at these colors.
Oh
So
man.
fun. And then, of
I
course,
still think
Elizabeth.
that drawing to me is just so wonderful. It's everything. It's a small world.
It
And
makes me
it's
so happy.
so cool.
It makes me so
Very neat.
yay, more Christmas stuff.
Nice.
So, y'all celebrated the holidays with us, which makes me so happy. And we will have more homework for you this week, which is going to be a little bit of a specific homework, which will be fun. Nick, before we jump into today, we're
Yeah.
giving a very special look at something at the end of the show. Let's tease out what's happening at the end of the show today. What are we
Oh
talking
my
about at
God.
the end?
It's so funny. How many times have we done this now? This is a great, like, number 8, maybe, I
Yeah,
think, somewhere.
I
We're going to
know.
preview our latest upcoming episode season coming up at the end of this episode. So
Yes,
stay
and
tuned for
we've
that.
talked about the idea of 6 seasons in a movie. This next announcement would be our movie. So stay tuned till the end of the
Mhm.
show, and we'll be making a huge announcement for the future of Office Hours, which is
Yeah.
going to be very, very fun.
Hey, we have someone from Bangladesh checking in at 4:32 a.m.
Oh, it's so early.
Wow, good
It's
for you. Thanks for
early.
joining us, man.
Yes, welcome.
That
Um,
is great.
and yes, no, I'll never check all these notifications because I don't know what they are, and I don't know. I have too many things in notifications. Sorry,
And you
everyone.
have 9 other things sending you notifications
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
It's at some point if you send me a message, I'll read it, but I can't make any guarantees. All right. With
Gotcha.
that, it is 2:35, which is my cutoff for the amount of time that we can talk before we get angry comments on our YouTube. So let's go ahead and hop into what we're talking about today. Nick's stretching because he's ready for today.
That's a good one. We
What is
love
our
it.
topic, Nick?
I love that we called this one don't call me a freelancer. I always want to say don't call it a comeback. I've been listening to a little bit too much LL Cool J.
Been here for years.
But again, this has been a interesting topic over the last year. I've heard it through a few podcasts, a few blogs, and very much so, I think people are kind of starting to think about, is this the right term for you as a small business owner or even a side worker, right? A side hustle. Is freelancer the right word? You know,
Yep.
so like we're going to dive deep into this whole world and help you maybe come up with a few different alternatives of what you can say. Because I think, what do you think? Like, what's the first thing you think of when you think of the word freelancer?
It's like a nomadic work person. They're just like
Yes,
they're like the free spirit. It's like the sisterhood of the traveling pants, but with a career.
like moving all over the place, no specific loyalty to one thing. I can
Yes.
bounce from here to here. And is that really what you want your perception to be? You know?
Yeah, probably not. And I think that we're going to explore a lot of the perceptions as well as how to craft a new perception during this and talk about, again, the truths and maybe not so truths of freelancing. So, getting into this, right, we're saying don't call me a freelancer. Nick and I have been practicing the idea of freelance as you perceive it. We both call ourselves different things. I call myself a creative for hire. Nick, what do you call yourself? Small business owner?
I'm a design agency owner.
Yep.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I refrain from the freelance word all the time.
Yep. So we've been doing the idea of what we're going to talk about for freelance. And so we're going to talk about our experiences and maybe some personal things that we've been through to give you a perspective if you're thinking about it. Some bad experiences that we've had as well as some good ones to help guide
Yeah.
your journey into this world.
Yeah,
And yes,
and I want to hear from you guys too. Like as we're talking, please plug in with your opinions because that's the whole point of this, you know?
yes. And as always, if you are someone who is out on your own, doing your own thing, or thinking about it and you have questions, just go ahead and tag us, send me a DM, or ask Elizabeth over on Discord. And again, if you join the Discord right down here, right down there, go to that link. And then at the bottom, there is always a voice channel happening. So right down here, it says Classroom Chat. If you hop in there, you can hop into voice, you can talk. And at the end of the show, we can bring you on and take your questions live. So if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in there and we'll make sure to check that out. And if you want to, we'll bring you on as well. All
Creative
right.
Hitman. That's my favorite one right there.
Yes.
Creative Hitman. Independent contractor for sure. There's so many different ways we can look at this. So we're going to break it down. This should be a good one.
Yes. So let's go ahead and jump into our lecture and look at what we have to talk about. So the truth of freelancing. Nick, let's get started. Where are we starting when we talk about the truth of freelancing?
Yeah, so we want to show you a few things that are really truthful and maybe not the things that you would think about before getting into it, or what a lot of people might call the negatives, you know, at a certain point here. And this first one here is the start of your freelance career is the hardest part. Like we wanted to kind of say, like, I think that's really the hardest part is anyone who makes that transition and says, I'm either quitting my job, maybe even with some, you know, some safety net is obviously the number one kind of recommended way. But are you ready to go? And when you do make that change, primarily that's probably the hardest part because everything else after that, it's like you've started the race.
Yes.
And you can't give up, right?
Yeah. And
So it takes years to get to that level of like, don't think it's going to happen overnight. And there's going to be, even if you have 2 clients lined up, to get through that entire first few years, to get to the higher fees, to get to more confidence, right? I think that's what it really takes.
Yep. And I think that there's a lot of thought of like, oh, I'm going full-time freelance. Like I'm finally achieving and doing my own thing. It's like not fun. Like it's low-key not fun for a little while. Like regardless of how excited you are, it's not going to be like a smooth transition. It's not going to be fun at the beginning because you're figuring out a lot of stuff that you haven't done before, right? It's just like working out after you haven't used, you know, you haven't done leg day in a while and you're doing leg day. It's going to be a little rough landing there. And this idea, again, I don't think I've told you this yet, but we're talking through all of these points through the lens of Pixar movies because I felt like it was fitting. And so the idea here of starting out freelance is that it's like falling with style, right? You're falling with style. You want to have a safety net that's set up as you begin to go out on your own, as you begin to make your own moves, become your own boss, make your own schedule. You want to have some kind of thing set up so that you're not just jumping off the cliff, right? There needs to be either a contract that you have that's long term. You need to have a full-time position as well as transitioning to doing stuff on the side. Don't just jump. Make sure that you are following with style, because it's gonna be non-graceful,
Yeah.
but eventually you need to have something there that's going to save you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's a pressure, particularly the non-creatives in your world might be like, "Hey, Andrew, why aren't you going freelance? You know, like you're perfectly poised for this. Like what? Oh my God, we heard about this. It's like that you have the chance to do it. I don't." How many times did you hear that?
Oh yeah.
Like, "Oh my God, I heard it from people that are like, "Oh, I can never be a freelancer, but you can't." You know, and I knew the writing was on the wall at a certain point for me where I knew when we were closing down the previous business I was part of that it became a thing where if I did not take the opportunity at that moment in time to do it, I would never do it again. Because if I went right back into another full-time gig from my previous one without trying this, I would never be here.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
right, it's perfect. Timing is everything.
Yep. I should have gone full-time freelance way before I did, but I was too nervous to. I didn't know. I thought like, "Oh, it's going to be totally
Yeah,
unachievable. Like I
yeah.
can't just go on my own. I can't do that. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the work. I'm not skilled enough. Like I need to rely on something else." And then
Hmm.
once I found that confidence, then it was like no holds barred, let's do it, let's go. And I've been
Yeah,
on my own for almost 3 years now, which is
yeah.
hopefully going to continue, question mark.
And it always feels temporary still for me. It's so bizarre. It's been 10 years and it
Yes.
still feels like I am playing a role that it will go back to a full-time position at one point.
Oh
And
yeah.
I never say never too. Like I will entertain anything. Like you always say that whole like creative for hire. As long as you can keep that philosophy alive, anything's possible. But I think we're our DNA and what we're most of us have been raised with is that idea you go to school, you graduate, you get a job, and you work your way up.
Yep.
And
Which
so,
we're talking about next week. So our last
yeah.
episode of the season of this season of Off the Record is going to be too cool for school. We're going to be talking about
Hmm.
whether or not you should go to design school or not. So it's going to be a spicy episode next week.
Yeah.
Make sure you
Yeah.
tune in for that one. All right, Nick, continuing on with your thought that you were just talking about is
Yes.
having to do all of the things. Here's the truth. It's a one-man show. Like it's a
Yeah.
one-person show. It's you. You're responsible for all your decisions. This can take a huge toll on you mentally. Again, I was just talking about I'm in the season of December is always, and really the every 6 months is always the end of a lot of my long-term contracts. And so I'm constantly like, will they get renewed? Will I have the same amount? Like, will it be the
Yeah.
same contract? Will I have the same income coming in? Will I get signed for things next year? Do I have any projects coming in next year?
Hmm.
Because everyone's taking time off for the holidays. Like, will I be able to pay my rent? Like, it's all of the questions happen at the same time. And that takes a toll on you. Like, I can't go to my employer and say, like, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
request a raise, or like, hey, or do you have any time off? It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to work for the next 4 months and then hopefully find time off. And then also
Yeah.
maybe I'll make money, or maybe I won't ever have a job ever again.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And yes, the truth is that freelancing requires fortitude. And yeah, a lot of hard work. And I mean, it's a mental game just as much as it is a creative game.
Yeah, where I look at this and agree with you 100% on everything you said, what I look at this in this perspective is the idea of I went from a collaborative group of, working at a company of 200 people. We had 30 people in our creative team. When we needed a brainstorm, we can get one together in 5 minutes. We can book a room. We'd have notes galore. Everyone would go back to their desk with a list of things to do. Then you go to this and you're like, okay, it's just me. Like, it
Yes.
is literally. And what's interesting was I was wishing for that because of years and years of going through the corporate thing. Can become very, you're cutting through a lot of red tape with everything, right? And so you'd sit there and go like, oh, one day I'm gonna have it by myself and I'm gonna make all the decisions, right? And everything. And so, as be careful what you wish for because yeah, those first few months, oh, it's but I think of it as just it's lonely. It could be lonely because it's just you.
Yep.
We'll talk about benefits of that, but for now, the truth is it's going to be just you. So if that's not how you're built, like I don't know. What do you
Yep.
think? Is it worth I think it's still worth taking the shot. I'm a big fan of take a shot on you. 1000%.
Yes.
And
So,
even if you're not feeling 100%.
yep, and I put this slide up. This is the summation of the ideas we're talking about. Is this quote from A Bug's Life? The first rule of leadership: everything is your fault.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Literally anything that happens
Mm-hmm.
within your creative career or any career that you have, if you're on your own doing your own thing, it's your fault. Like whether it's a win or a loss. And this is actually
Yes.
what I told. I was in an agency and I told my business partners. I was an owner in an agency, and I told my partners like, "Hey, I'm leaving to go out on my own. I'm making this decision for me." And it may be the worst or best decision that I've ever
Mm-hmm.
made, but it's my decision that I'm making for myself. And
Ownership.
and
Yeah.
exactly, and that's the big thing is when you are going out on your own, you have to do it because you want to do it, right? You can't do it in response to someone else because you're becoming your own leader and everything is going to be your responsibility. You need to take responsibility for that before you jump into it.
Yeah. Would you say if someone is 100% opposite that and they come to you and say, "But Andrew, I'm not that person. Like I don't have that drive or that fortitude like we said." Would you still say, and let's say they had the safety net, which I still think that's the number one priority to making the freelance move. Would you still push them to try it?
Like maybe, yeah. Well, I think yes. I think that there is a lot of energy and power in
Mhm.
like doing something for yourself. And so if you're like, I'm making this decision for myself, I'm going into it, and then you realize like, oh, this is a terrible decision. It's like, yeah, but I made it. Like I made the terrible decision. Now I'm responsible to fix it. And great, I learned
Yeah.
my lessons because I took the chance. Like if you don't take the chance,
Yes.
then you won't learn the lessons. So
Yeah.
I think that it's still worth it to take a shot if you feel like you want to, then prove yourself wrong. I guess like
Yeah.
it'd be
Yeah.
better to learn that you're wrong than to never know if you're right.
Yeah, it's like that saying, right? Exactly. You never know until you try, and
Yep.
you don't want to be 30 years down the road and say, I should have done it at a certain time. I push that person to do it because I've seen really good success stories with people that didn't think they had this inner drive or whatever you want to call it, responsibility. I think a lot of people love being in a full-time job where all they got to worry about is between these two walls, right? Wherever
Yep.
you work. But I'm a fan of being wearing a lot of hats and doing all that stuff, and that came from the job I was at, not from the freelancing. So
Yes.
it's it's how you enter this world. I think really makes a big difference on if you're going to be successful at freelance or not.
Yep. Just like Michael Scott said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't
Yes,
take.
that's that's
All right. So let's talk more about that. Is because you are your own leader and you are on your own, you're on the hook always. It's
mm-hmm.
just you, right? And like I think Nick has people that can help him out with stuff. I kind of have people that can help me out with stuff. And thank you, Elizabeth. I'm here with quotes. Um, but mostly it is just you. And there is a question in chat. We'll get to that, Nick, if you just want to note that after this slide.
Yes.
So when you're on your own, make sure that you're solving problems for yourself in the future, right? You need to be doing yourself favors in the future and not sabotaging yourself, right? If in the
Yeah.
moment you're like, boom, oh, I'll just get this done, we'll like throw it together, whatever. And then down the road, you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do it like that? You need to be setting yourself up for success, right? I always tell people, don't give up what you want for what you want now, right? We want this this project to be successful. We want it to be accessible. We want it to get done on time. That is what we want, right? But right now I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired, so like I'm gonna kind of throw it together. And so like what I want right now is I want to take a nap. So I want to kick this out and then I'll fix it later. No, don't give up what you want for what you want right
Mm-hmm.
now. So
Yes.
what I like to do is because you are in charge of your own workflow is make a workflow that works for you and your lifestyle and then make the struggles of working mild inconveniences with answers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
something that I've done is I have used something called AnyDesk, and AnyDesk allows
Yeah.
me to remote into my desktop from anywhere that I am. So I like to travel a lot, and I have my laptop. It's like a 2011 MacBook. Like like it barely runs. But the only thing that I use it for is to remote back into my home computer where I can do whatever I want, right? And so there have been times that a client has asked for a revision on a project, and because I'm using Creative Cloud Storage, I'm using Creative Cloud Libraries, and I'm using
Mm-hmm.
AnyDesk, I can be, I'm trying to think of the craziest place I've been. So let's say
Doesn't
I
matter, right?
I am
Yeah.
in line. Okay, this is one. I've been in line for Expedition Everest at Disney World. Literally in line. Email comes in from the client. Hey, can we change the header out on this? Something's misspelled and we need to put someone else's name in. Great. Hop on my phone, remote into my desktop, open up my InDesign document that's stored in the cloud, change the document. They have already gotten access to that document, right? They already have access to it because I've shared it through Creative Cloud. I make the update from my phone on my desktop, save it, it syncs to them, sends them an update that it's updated, and now we're good, right? So I know that because I'm not always at my computer, I need to be able to access my computer at all times. And so I've set up that system for myself, right? So anytime that you can automate something, you can establish a system, make everything accessible to the most possible degree, and then build templates for everything because you only want to do yourself favors when you're working on your own.
Yeah, and it's the do it once and you have it forever mentality.
Yes.
Everything you build for the replaceability of the next one. So it's just simple swaps. I think online accounting things for proposals and estimates are great. I know, and we'll go to this question in a second, and great that you brought up creative briefs. I do the same thing. My creative brief is built on templates and structures that when the client puts in all of the missing elements or answers the questions, it builds the brief for me. And I basically have workable copy and I am not writing or wordsmithing anything.
Yep.
The question was great. Where do you find creative briefs for freelance projects? So I'm assuming, are you talking about to find work, or is it to just finding a creative brief to use for your next freelance project?
Oh, let's talk
just
about
for
both.
finding them, say, yeah, for both.
You go.
Oh, I was going to say to build them, it's everything we're talking about right now. You need to build one on your own. You've got to go through the process of a few jobs to know how to build a creative brief that will work best for your process. But you start with some great ones that you can find online. You could just literally search for creative brief PDF, Google that. You will find every version of them out there. But I stress that you should get this stuff, research it, and build your own in your own language and for what you do specifically. That's what I would do for that.
I'm looking something up right now because I know that there are a couple places that have really good templates for those.
Yes.
And let's see here.
I know Freelancers Union, I believe, has one online for them.
Yes. So,
I believe all of like FreshBooks and QuickBooks and a lot of them Intuit on their blogs. They have free ones that are available as well. You guys can check out there.
Yep, and I think the Hoods have one. So the Hoods have a project proposal template. This proposal template's really good. A little different than the creative brief, but similar idea. You could probably use that template for that. And then our friends at Weekend Creative as well have a lot of stuff for commercial photography. So not necessarily for design, but if you're in the photography zone, they have really, really great resources and
swap
some
right over
classes. Yeah, so great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, they those are two that you could probably pick some up that would be pretty easy if you wanted to just grab a couple. And it looks like we had another question coming in.
Ooh,
do you keep your computer running at all times? Yes, Ashram, I do. When I leave for vacation, I do leave my computer on. I turn off all of my lights and monitors, but I leave the computer on so that I can still access it, and it's still on the internet.
I know. I think even when mine sleeps, I believe the remote access you can use, you can give it permission to waken up the computer when need be. So that's kind of nice when you're not there and it is completely sleep. You can still access it.
Yep. And I'm going to show the website right now so that you guys can see what the service is called. It's just called AnyDesk, and let's pull this up. There we go. So it's called AnyDesk right here, and you basically just download it onto your computer, and then you get it on your phone, your laptop, wherever, and you can access everything that is on that account. And it's the best tool that I use. I mean, I can do anything that I want on my computer and manage it from my phone. I've done a live stream like that before. It's super easy. So play around with those.
I technically think that's the way all of our computers are going to be in the future. To be honest with you,
absolutely.
Like you will just your computer at home will just be the portal. You know.
Yes. Yep. And Justin Von Braun is saying that the Future also has some project proposal templates. Yes, Future has great templates for a lot of stuff. Sorry, there's an eyelash in sunlight.
They're so resourceful. They've already found 3 or 4 links here to tell you about that. But
they don't even need us. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. You guys take it over.
Yeah. Just like the agreements and everything else you're going to do, and like the proposal, maybe the proposal is even different. I put a one together today that's based on a template, but I made that template based on the trial and error of all of these different ones that you find. Definitely strive for building your own one day, because I think that just makes more sense. It's your language, it's what you need for your process.
Yep.
Totally cool.
Yep.
Let's
And
get
a lot of
into it.
people saying they've used TeamViewer. I used to use TeamViewer, but I like
Oh,
AnyDesk
nice.
better.
Okay.
And pricing plans, I don't know. I have the free plan, and I have never had a complaint. So I don't know.
Oh,
Do
so
I?
you've never paid for you use completely the
I
free
have,
one
I
and
have
it
the free plan,
works.
and it's great. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's great.
All
All
right.
right,
So let's
perfect.
talk about our favorite thing: money, 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 money.
Yes. This
Nick,
is a tough
talk to me
one
about
because
money.
let's talk about this truth here. Money, money, money. First, it's so hard to get that first flow in. It's really harder to even keep it flowing. Like once you get that first job or that first check, you're almost past like this mental finish line. But now's the next one, right? And then how are you onboarding for the next client? And then what are you doing for pricing? How do you increase your pricing? What about taxes and 401ks and then your health care? We could spend a whole episode on this one slide, right? Because there's
Yes.
so many different variables to consider. But my best advice with this is coming from a person who hates doing things about numbers and being proactive when it comes to these things. Getting my own business started has made me so much more proficient in all of these areas. Not just that, but then in just, life accounting and savings and all these other things. And just being better with this idea. I embrace it now where I used to almost push it aside and ignore it. So if you need to dive into something like this, even if you're just doing a great side hustle, guys, really be diligent on it because if you do grow it to something bigger, the baseline of what you're already putting together is really strong, you
Yep,
know?
absolutely. And our friend in chat, Chris, is saying, can you do a show on organization, organizing all the resources and links that get passed along to clients?
Mm,
I think, man, I think that we have done
we
that
did
in an
something like
episode
that.
at some point.
Yeah.
But yes, Chris, we will do that at some point next year. We'll do that as an episode just for
Ooh,
you. Only if you tune in, though. If you're not in chat when we do it, we're shutting the show down. But yeah,
yeah.
we'll do a
Chris
full
isn't here.
episode. Yep, because we both, I think Nick and I both kind of specialize in that and getting everything together for a handoff, and we'll show you how we do it and how you can implement it and do it really, really fast and easy. Actually,
Yeah, you're right.
yes. All right,
Great
so
question.
let's hop in and keep talking about perception. So
Yeah.
perception, we've talked about perception is reality, how people perceive us, how do we perceive the world around us. And a lot of times the perception of freelancer is not a great perception. Nick,
Mhm.
what's kind of the takeaway that people think usually when we talk about freelancers?
These were great little quotes I found when people were asked what they think about a freelancer. Freelancers often have a series of small gigs, short pipelines, and limited ability to choose which work they want to do. And I can remember back in when I first heard the term freelancer and I saw freelancers being hired to come in to the job where I was previously at. I remember seeing them, they'd come in, they would work solo. They'd only be there, technically had like a day rate, and that everything about the term freelancer really applied to them, right? They weren't contributing to anything, they weren't part of meetings. They were told what to do, they had a thing to do at the end of the day, and then they got paid. It also implies that it's a very temporary state, suggesting that you are in transition or you may find a new job or you might jump that ship. I know one day we would have a freelancer for a week and Friday would come around and that freelancer wasn't there. And they're like, oh, they just decided to not show up that day. And we were
Yep.
like, so all of a sudden there's a distrust and there's a perception that I think has now elevated. Now that freelance has become, I can't remember what the actual I think it's something like 30% of US workers are considered freelancers at this point.
Wow.
That's a big jump. It went from like 12, I think 15 years ago to almost 30. So don't you think the term needs redefining because it has changed so much and you're no longer just that person that's coming in and contributing for hours, not value, right? It's
Yep.
hours. There's
Yep.
always values with freelancers. So if you are in this world of your own business, doesn't it make sense to kind of like change the perception a little bit?
Yep. And I think that like the slide that I have next is both the perception of how people see freelancers and then kind of a zone that maybe I choose to do in my career. And that's Wally, right? I think the
Yeah.
perception of a lot of freelancers is Wally, right? Hey, we've got a bunch of trash. We need it to be in cubes. You're really good at making cubes. Go make us some cubes, right? And like no appreciation. Like he gets the check and he just does his job. And sometimes that's kind of what it is, and that's fine. Like, that's like, oh cool, this is just what I'm doing. So a lot of my work is this, right? There's companies that come to me and they're like, hey, here's your hourly, here's the hours that we have for you, here's the projects, we have a bunch of trash, put it in boxes. And I'm like, I am so good at putting trash in boxes, and I don't have to think about it, and I work really fast, so yeah, I'll put your trash in boxes, no problem. And that's something that I think, even if it is like they're looking down on you, as a business owner, as someone who runs my own company, right? I'm like, yeah, totally. Like, I mean, I don't think that they're like looking down on you, but they're giving you low level work. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take low level work. I want to meet my bottom lines. I'll 100% make some boxes of trash. No problem. But at a certain time, it doesn't mean that that is all that I do. It doesn't mean that as a freelancer or as a business owner that it's like, oh, this is all that you do is you just pick up things here and there and you just go for it. It's like, oh no, I'm choosing to do that. And I definitely don't see myself as this. This isn't the perception of what I do. This is one of the things that I do, and it's my choice to do that, not being forced upon me. And so I think that Wally is kind of the zone for either the perception of a freelancer or something that a freelancer could choose, right? Because Wally is very happy with his job because he's really good at it. So,
partition, like you say, these could be the jobs that just pay a lot of the bills, but you don't put out there and show off. It's a good production level work or something like that. And for that person, maybe that is your perception. You want to be looked at as that freelancer. You're not a strategic partner with them the way you are with your other ones. I love that somebody asked about Upwork, and I think Laura did. And I think it depends on where you're at. I think there is always some room for that. If you need to ignite work and find work, it's a great place to start. I have not heard of much success when it comes to like really doing that, because you've got to cover yourself completely. But it's also, be prepared for some really low expectations on what the price might be. You're getting people that are never worked with creatives before and think it is a world of, $30 logos. So be careful.
And that goes back here again. The perception: prospects could see you as low-level, undervalued designer. Clients too often see freelance arrangements as low-cost line items rather than strategic partnerships. Mm-hmm. Yes is the answer, and these are not necessarily a bad thing. Again, if you need work, a low-level, low-cost, non-strategic partnership, that sounds fantastic, right? There are times that I'm like, I've had so many strategic partnerships and everyone's wanting my input and my brain is fried that I'm like, can someone get me like a low-cost line of just like undervalued low-level production design? I love that crap. And Justin Von Braun is saying as well, he does a lot of production work as well. Sometimes there is work down there that is the low level, and you're like, yes, I am your low level. I am a high level that will work at a low level if you send me a check. Absolutely, let's do it.
Sometimes after a big strategic, like thought-provoking project, sometimes that's the best work in the world.
Yes.
So again, be flexible, be one or the other. There's something you could choose any degree of what you want this to be. And I think sometimes you're right. It's okay to be looked at that way with that particular client. I don't think you can be looked at. Can you be looked at this in two different ways by the same client?
Maybe, but I think that the key is how you are controlling the perception and not them having the perception of you. That it's like, yes, I am very good at this and I will do this for you. Not like, hey, you're a freelancer, go do this for me. Right? That it's my choice to do what I am creating and the jobs that I take on. All right. What you call yourself matters. We talked about this a little bit. Let's talk about perceptions of calling yourself, Nick. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so telling someone you own a business gives you instant credibility, right? So when I saw this kind of trait that you can just go along with this world, rather than saying I'm a freelancer, if you just kind of mention the fact that you own a business, instantly it signals that you're serious about your work, probably more than what, let's just say, someone's perception of freelance is. That's something you can't control, right? It's a variable that someone might get this immediately and be like, oh, of course, you do run a business. No, I totally get that. Or you might get someone that goes, oh, so you're not just that person that I'm going to tell what to do and pay you for it in design, right? Businesses solve problems for other businesses. So if you can be a business to them, boom, you are instantly a problem solver. And that is number one what we do. I tell every one of my students when they're designing their case studies and everything, what problem did you solve? Everything we do in commercial design is doing that. So when this kind of line came across some of my research, I was like, that's incredible. And guess what? Yes, we're giving you this permission. It is okay to call yourself a business.
Yes.
I've seen people say like you don't have a business unless A, B, C, and D. You have employees. You're this. You have an S corp, whatever it is. Change that perception as well. I think you can call yourself this. This is the first step, and I think getting past that perception.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely. Yep. And this is such a side tangent. Look at the Y in this font that we're using. I just noticed it right now, and like it's just gorgeous.
I love it. I
That's
think this
all.
is Brie. It's called Brie on Adobe fonts.
Ooh. Mm.
Yeah.
Nothing like a good brie.
Definitely a good Brie.
So yes,
It's
I agree with all
a
those
Brie.
things. And I think somebody said something. Oh yes. So Justin said, "Sure, I charge a decent hourly for it. I'm not lowballing or being lowballed, but it's not always glamorous work." Yes, that is the key. And I think a way to change the perception of just like getting tossed things or looking down as like, oh, it's just like, quick whatever, is to give it the up treatment. Make your adventure book. Make a plan. Because as the person on their own, as the freelancer that you're starting, right? That it's like, oh yeah, they're just like, this is a hobby for them. There's no plan. They're not going anywhere. They're kind of just like meandering, right? But if we have an adventure book, then we're ready to kind of lay down and say, no, 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 there is a plan here and it is a very intentional business that I am building. So Nick, what do we do as we get started?
I wish I did this because I did not do this. I was like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, I finally did it. I'm doing this. And I was like piecemealing things all over. I didn't go to a strategic kind of direction like this. So we want to give you like some tips on how to set up shop. And the first thing I think you want to do is whatever definition this is to you, come up with a business plan. There's so much value in this idea of coming up with something that is a way of you to kind of at least have a roadmap or a path to kind of follow. Maybe it's setting goals too. A big part of a business plan is where do you want to be at the end of the year? Where do you want to be next year? I remember hearing someone that went to a fantastic kind of like business kind of guru, and they gave them these goals and they freaked out. They were like, we'll never get to that level. And they were like, put it in writing and make it happen. There are ways. You are setting a goal and you're making the steps to get there. So you want to get through that, master your time management. That to me is like, I'm still learning this every single day. How do you get more time into your day more efficiently with some balance too, right? You don't want to overwork yourself and get to some crazy levels like that.
And we do have an episode. We do have an episode that is all about time management. We talk about working with schedules, working with a calendar, mapping out free time on your calendar so you have space. So there is an episode about that. I'm not sure where it is, but it does exist if you want to learn more about time management.
Yeah, we got that there. And then setting reasonable rates at the very beginning. I think that's a very smart move to make. There's always and room to go higher with these things, but setting them, doing a little bit of work to see, particularly in your area. I know there's a lot of great resources to find out what freelance rates or what project rates are for anybody that is starting to get into this. Where did you go and look around or ask people when you were starting to look at rates to kind of start charging?
Yeah, I started, when I was right out of school, I started talking to people to see what everyone in my class was charging, and then would kind of gauge my skill level to what they were charging, and then kind of went up from there. And so I always tell people like, and I think we've done a couple episodes that are specifically on pricing. But I always feel like right out of school, what would be the zone right out of school for people that are like just getting started? What would be like an hourly rate that you feel like would be acceptable? What would be your thought?
20 to 26 bucks an hour.
Okay.
I think that's kind of where it's going. That's where I think a beginner kind of starts to work at, and that's something that's doable. I don't know where that falls with anybody who hasn't done an hourly just yet, but there are ways to look at it and say, you can basically look at what is your desirable annual rate that you want to make per year. And basically how that works is if you set it up, you basically have about 20 hours plus times 36, which is like, let's say it's like your hourly rate. If 20 hours is what it's going to take for you to do something, and you times it by your hourly, that gives you an idea what that budget's going to be. But how do you figure that out? And I think there's ways you can do it where you take the idea of how many hours you work per year, divide it by what you think that actual annual set goal would be. That gives you an hourly, and it should come in at the 45 to 50 range per year. It comes in at like 20 to 26 bucks an hour. So then that gives you a kind of a starting point. We talked about pricing in a few episodes, right?
We have, yeah.
Where it was the difference between hourly and value. So you use hourly to build an estimate, but you present in a value-based thing.
Yep.
So you're not showing them hours, you're showing them value.
Yep.
But
And
that's a great way to do that.
we're talking about reasonable rates as well, and we're going to get back on this. We just got a little sidetracked with rates because we love talking about money. When it says set reasonable rates, that's reasonable to the clients, right? So I have clients that I work for that are $65 an hour, and I'm like, sure, for them that feels reasonable. They're giving me long-term contracts, like they're getting guarantees. Like, of course, a reasonable rate would be a little bit lower, right? And then I have contracts that are with government programs that are giving me hour by hour, that are like, you know, have all kinds of complexities and teams and meetings, and that work will be $135 an hour, right? And I'm like, that's reasonable for them. Reasonable rates do not go across the board. It is reasonable to that client, right? And so your swing can be absolutely insane as long as it is reasonable to those clients.
Yes, perfect.
All right, let's talk about networking. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, get into the networking in person and online. It's so important that you're doing this. I've gotten almost every one of my first projects, and even to this day projects, based on in-person meetings, collaborations with people, making a memorable impression when you meet someone, right?
Going to tacos.
Yeah, exactly. Tacos to office hours.
That's
so yeah, there's so many, you got to, and talk to people. I think the best thing about it too is it's planting seeds for the future when you have to like reach out to someone and say, man, I would love for someone in the motion or UI UX world to have ask a few questions about, oh, I met that person at the last kind of event that I went to, or we met at an online conference. These things will help you along the way. So don't forget that as well. And also here, diversifying your services.
Yes.
Wow. That's, you have to do this for so many reasons, because I remember so many times starting with a project, starting with a new client, doing all this work for them. And then when we were done, they said, okay, do you know anyone that could do like the sign outside of our building? And I was like, why would you not think that would be me? Like, where did I go wrong in not telling you, here's a list of my services? So don't take for granted that they're going to know exactly what you can do. Give them a list.
Yep. And I've taken $500 jobs to $5,000 jobs by just diversifying services. Like, being able to do all the things and take a constant inventory of what you can do, what you're interested in, and if you can sell it, right? So before COVID, I was doing some live streaming, right? Some kind of content. Then once COVID hit, I started doing more. I was like, man, I really love live streaming. This is really fun. We did Canceled Con. I was like, oh my gosh, I like ran my own online conference, right? And so now that's something that I've experience in, that I'm like, oh, this is a new service that is not design, where I started trying to sell design. I'm like, oh, I have a new service, and now I'm selling to produce events for other companies. I'm running online live streams, right? That it's another thing that is now a new service that I can tack on to my career. And so constantly taking inventory of new interests you have, new hobbies you have. I just got a risograph printer, so I'm going to try to launch a risograph printing service, right? Just try to keep reinventing yourself, and then it ends up diversifying so that you're not on your own. You're on your own in a bunch of different ways, which feels like you're not on your own.
Yeah, and you might even have these capabilities already. It's just they don't know you do it as well too. So it's adding to it, but also being known that your full list of like your menu is in their face. They know exactly what you do.
Yep. And a great question coming in from Colby. Any odd job ideas to complement design? I was thinking about becoming a notary. I always tell people, if you're in school or you are getting any kind of knowledge, always try to double major, get a concentration with something that is not design. So I did graphic design and digital media and public relations. And so if you have something that is
nice compliment,
extra, it's fantastic. And then, I mean, that's what I do now is it's the public speaking. I can copyright, I can edit, right? We can make a story. That if you can complement something with design, that is magic. And so if you were going to do something like being a notary, that's really, really good for networking. But maybe find something that is in a complementarian kind of industry, right? But I actually do like the kind of like move of having an odd job that you just meet people. I think that's super smart as well, because you have great connections.
That's a great idea. I mean, any other element to add to that roster would be fantastic. Yeah.
Right. All right.
So our last one was basically like just being on top of things, blogs, magazine things. you name it, anything that you have. I think you guys all are really great on that because you always ask about what book was that or blah, blah, blah. Start that online library and that kind of in-office library as well.
Yep. All right, let's talk about some myths. So, some myths about freelance. And the myth is financial insecurity is a nightmare. Nick, what about it? What
Yeah,
about
so
money?
this is what people's excuse would be, like why I'm not getting into freelancing, right? Well, all this stuff about finances would be a nightmare. Don't think of it that way. Yes, it is crippling, but I think what's great about it is just the opposite. It could be strangely liberating, like I said earlier, to be on top of this stuff and know it like the back of your hand. Your success is your own and only yours. So, yes, the failures are there too, right? But the more you are aware of all these things, the more focused you are and the more motivated you are. I think it hits me every morning when I wake up that I'm like, I am not getting in the car and driving an hour and a half to where my office used to be and wasting 3 hours a day. Like all these things, it's like, I'm like, I'm so fortunate. Like these are those things that you can just kind of check off your day every day. And I think that's mostly motivating, especially on the financial side.
Yep.
It's in your hands, make it happen, right?
Yep, absolutely. Another myth, it's a lonely life. Lonely.
I know. We talk about this as we're each other's coworkers over the last year and a half
Yes.
from doing this. But again, your first few weeks, your first few days might feel this way, and I think a lot of people don't want to go into it because of this thing. But here's the thing: you're gaining some hours. Like I said, no more commutes. The meetings are a lot more streamlined because I know we had meetings like crazy every day,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
it'd be 5:30, and you haven't even done a single bit of work, and you're taking it home, you're taking it on the weekends. But here's the deal: you get some of that extra time because you're much more creative with your time. Use that time to do the things that you really want to do, the extra things to get out and socialize properly, or do the fun things that you really want to do. Maybe it's like, what Kobe had mentioned, and picking up something additional that's another cool little revenue for you as well.
Yep.
So don't think it's going to be the lonely life. I think it's more focused, right? Like I've never had more focused time to work because I'm not being bombarded with people coming to the door and this and that and hey, emergency meeting. So there's a way to flip this one quite positive.
Yep. And of course, you want to get out and socialize, meet new people. That's how office hours exists. Nick and I met at a conference.
Yeah.
And the couple conferences are coming up. Creative South is coming up in the beginning of April. It's in Columbus, Georgia. One of my favorite conferences, but I'm super biased because it's my conference. But Creative South is coming up in April. Make sure you check that out. I know that Circles is happening as well in Texas. Circles will be in September, I believe, coming up. I know
Great.
there's probably another crop coming soon, which we'll talk about extensively on this show when it does. But yeah, there's a lot of great opportunities for you to connect. Hopefully, Adobe Max next year, fingers crossed. And a lot of great ways for you to connect with people and take advantage of those. That's how you make it less lonely to be out on your own.
Yes. Perfectly done, man.
All right,
Love
last
that.
myth. It's hard to get motivated. Is it?
Ooh. It's well, like we just said here, these are all things that you can counterbalance, you can look at totally differently. One, you're choosing the projects that you enjoy with and the clients that you enjoy working with, right? Things are totally different because you're looking at things much more in the forward and the day ahead. I love knowing what my week's going to be a little bit better, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
can motivate and I can be a little more proactive to it because I think technically, as much as my schedule was at my previous job, I didn't know what was going to happen in the next 10 minutes because there are too many other variables,
Yep.
right? Here, you are driving the steering wheel. You got the hands on the steering wheel. You know where you're going. So having that clear look ahead, to me, gives you the motivation. I think you agree a lot on this as well, right?
I do agree a lot on this. That's all I have to say. All right,
Yes.
so let's talk about some alternatives of things that you could call yourself instead of calling yourself a freelancer. Nick, what do we got?
Yeah. And I know a lot of you kind of threw out some great things here, but just these are quite simple, guys. There's not a lot of like crazy math here, right? Business owner, design business owner, self-employed graphic designer, professional graphic designer. How about just this? I'm a graphic designer.
Yep.
Don't need to know where I work. Not at a company. I'm not maybe you're not feeling too confident in saying you're a business owner or whatever. Perfect.
Yep.
You're
And-
still putting it's professional first, title second.
Yes, and
right?
if you
Yeah.
do a lot of things, and this is the reason, don't shortchange yourself with a name, right? So anytime that there's a student that is like that does photography but also design, and they're like, oh, it's this person photography. I'm like, don't put that in your title.
Yes.
Like as you grow, change what you call yourself, right? That's why I call myself a creative for hire, because I do design, I do art direction, I'll do video, I'll do photography, I'll produce events, I'll host conferences, right? That all those things are within the creative industry. And so I'm just creative for hire. Whatever you want, we can do it. If I just called myself like, oh, I run a graphic design agency. Oh, you
Yeah.
do events as well? Yes, I do events as well, but like you wouldn't know that from
Yeah.
graphics. So make sure that your title is broad enough to encompass all the services that you are going to sell.
There you go.
I think that's really
Yep.
important. All right, so
And then they fire back and go, "Oh, so you mean you're a freelancer?"
exactly. Yes. Yes. So we do have some great resources for you here. And these are some things for you to click through to find on your own. Wade, we're going to send you on a wild goose chase to find some links here. The first is Freelance and Business and Stuff. Nick, what is that?
Oh, the best book around. I
It
use
is.
that in my graphics seminar class this semester. It is by Jen and Amy Hood, and it's a really fun, clean, simple, like approachable way to kind of introduce yourself into that world.
Yep.
They do it like nobody else has. It's fantastic.
Yep, and we'll show you real quick. I'm going to show you another service. It's called Clockify, and I have it right up here in my Chrome. So it plugs into Chrome, and you basically can use it to work on projects, right? So I'm working on office hours right now. Is I just type in office hours and I hit start, and it starts a timer, right? I can add a project, I can add if it's billable, I can add tags to it, who the client is, and now I'm on the clock for office hours, and it is tracking my time, right? So I can stop this and then go over to the actual website, and let me click over here. But on Clockify, that's what I thought was going to happen. I need to log in. Oh gosh, I don't have time to log in to show you this, but Clockify is an incredible resource. Go check out Clockify. It does integrate into Chrome, and it will add a Clockify button to every email that you get. So in the email header, it will have the email header and then Clockify. So as you open it, you can clock in for you reading that email, right?
Crazy.
Charge for all your time. So Clockify is great. Square Invoices, that's what I use for my invoices. I currently have a client that owes me a lot of money that has not paid me in 9 months. If you're watching, you need to pay me. If not, it does send them a reminder email every single day that they have not paid me. And I don't have to worry about it. They just get an email every day saying, hey, Andrew's mad, give him his money. And then AnyDesk is that last one that we looked at. You can put that on there as well. All right,
Yes.
Nick, very special announcement time. We have 3 minutes left in the show. What are we announcing?
Yeah. Oh, we're announcing our next new scheduled episode bunch. We call it a season. That was a stretch.
We got it. Yes.
We're calling it Creative Basics. And
Yes.
again, we're going back to basics with some of the most coolest things to really almost refresh yourself with, or taking you from a novice to a no fear creative designer within 6 months.
Yes, and you can
Or a
see
year.
here, it says in less than a year. That's right. Office Hours is launching an entire year. So we will have mini seasons in between here, but it will be a full year of content to where we will take you from nothing, right? From absolute novice to no fear by the end of the year. And we will give you the schedule for the whole year pretty much. And you'll be able to tune in and level up every season each few months. So instead of doing completely different stuff, we'll be tracking through the entire year next year. That's right. You're stuck with us. And let's take a look at the first block of what we will be talking about in some of the topics. Nick, do you
Let's
want to
get
walk
on
through
it.
some of these?
Oh, I'm excited because I'm going to refresh my memory of all these things too, which is kind of great. Week 1, we're getting into finding the idea. Week 2, we're going to do sketching and layout. Week 3, Illustrator basics. Week 4, how to make a logo. I can't wait.
It's
What's
gonna
up
be
for
fun.
5?
So this is our Creative Basics 101. And so as you notice, it is from January 7th to February 25th. We will be coming back with a Creative Basics 201 and 301. And so the rhythms of next year will be Creative Basics classes, and then we will have a product highlight. So we'll be kind of going back and forth, and we'll have logo foundations, and then we'll do one on photography foundations. And so it'll be back and forth teaching you everything you need to know at a base level, and then a little more focused, and then up a level on that. So week 5 is going to be Photoshop basics. Then we're going to be talking about retouching photos. We're going to get into InDesign, which is going to be super fun. And then we're going to show you how to make a booklet. So we're going to try to cover everything. And yes, everyone's so excited about InDesign. You have no idea how excited I am. We will be doing a little mini season breakaway that is just about layout. It will be our layout highlight. I believe it's 5 weeks. So we'll be getting into InDesign a lot more next year. But we will be all over the place, taking you on a journey for the entire year. I'm excited, Nick. It's going to be good. And so what we want you to do for homework is to go over to our Discord, right, which is right below us, right there. And in that Discord, we want you to come over here into the homework channel. And in the homework channel, let us know what you want us to teach you next year. We are going to be going through the entire year next year. We have a plan, but we would love to incorporate some of the stuff that you want to know into that content. So your homework is to put it in there. And Wade is saying, I can't wait until the in real life office hours summer camp.
Ooh,
Same.
Yes, Wade, it's happening.
I'm ready. So go in there, toss your homework in. Thanks so much for joining us today. We had a great time. We have one more episode in this season before we end the year. Nick, what are we talking about next week? I think we previewed it. Do you remember what the topic is?
Yes. Well, because we were going to make it honework too, but it was all about it being trained through design school or not.
Yes. So design school or not, next week, come back and we'll talk about that. It rhymed. It felt right. It felt right for the holidays. Yes. We'll see you next week, everyone. Go get some hot cocoa. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.